Hi everyone, and this is the first time I'm going to be showing you my face, and that's because I want hopefully a community that cares about me, and so I'd like to show people my face for when my game does release and they can see me and can see I actually care. Um, so now, that was just my intro. So now I just want to tell people I'm still around, I'm still making this game. I just had to take a break from school because that was kind of stressful, even though I really am a procrastinator, so I didn't really study that much even though I wasn't working on this game. So. Oh well. Um, so I'll just talk about future plans I have for this game. So obviously the interface, I want to finish the interface. People saw this equipment interface already. I plan to have 3 more screens that are like this. So there'll be the equipment interface screen, the player interface screen, and the group interface screen. Player will have your basic equipment items, all your stats, all your kind of attributes. That's probably where you'll level up your stats too. Your group will hopefully have dungeon tools, friend finders, group finders, um, showing your guild, all that common stuff that are in other MMOs. Also, I'll talk about I want to add a physics system, maybe make my game more physically based. So make the impacts feel more effective. So when you hit someone, make it feel more alive, or just make things feel more alive for my game, so you're more immersed into it. One of the ways I want to do that eventually is add a particle system. It probably won't make release, but I do want to make a particle system, so maybe blood just splatters randomly when you do a gory move. So now I'll talk about the weapons I find. Obviously, if anyone played my beta, there was no weapons. You just used your fist the whole time. And I definitely don't want that. I do like fists. I love fist combat, and I'm a fist person guy. But I know that sometimes it's cool to have other weapons, and that can totally change up the gameplay and make it a lot funner for some people. I might personally stick with fists because I love fists. But I do plan to add different weapons such as guns and swords or one-handed weapons to start off with. So guns will probably be the first thing I make, and those will be randomly generated. My inspiration for the guns is Borderlands, so I want to make it as close to a sprite-based Borderlands as possible, if I can. Of course, it might not be as good, obviously. Borderlands is a big company, but I want to try to make it have that feeling that every gun is different. But I probably won't be able to, but maybe eventually we'll get to that point. And yeah, special abilities. Even swords will have cool abilities. Obviously, if people haven't played Borderlands, the guns do random effects, turn people on fire, do ice. But also the swords will have special abilities like that too when they're eventually released. Maybe even a Zelda-inspired ability when you're at full health, you shoot a beam out of your sword, things like that. So now we're going to talk about the dungeon system. So the dungeon system, I don't think I've ever shown it off because it's never been in a stage where I've wanted to show it off. However, it will be instance, so single-player dungeons, only one person will be allowed in there. 2-player dungeons, only 2 people will be allowed in there. And depending on my popularity, if this gets more popular, then I'll add 4-player dungeons. But for now, I don't want it to be like, oh, I need to gather 12 people and there's 5 people online. Oh, great, type of thing. So I think I'm only going to start with 2 dungeons, 2 dungeon max at the start. And these will have little puzzles, and these will also be for... I'll talk a little bit about my zones now. So when you beat the zone, you beat all the leveling content, you get the highest level in the first zone. And then what'll happen is you'll be kind of gear blocked from entering the next zone. So you'll need to do dungeons. This is to reinforce people to play dungeons, because a lot of people like to play dungeons. I want to make sure that they have that player base and that people want to do dungeons. So every zone is going to be gear locked. Theoretically, anyways, I haven't designed it yet, so things might change. Theoretically, each zone will be gear locked, and then you can move on to the next zone. And I plan for the game to release with 3 zones. So, and there's also other options besides these dungeons to get cool armor to get onto the next zone. You can also get new armor by PvPing. You can get good enough armor to move on to the next zone. I'm also want to add a roleplay element. So instead of this PvE is PvP, and then there'll be a third option, which is a roleplay element, which will be kind of like what I'm imagining my system for this roleplay element is I guess it would call a trainer's guild, where this Trainers Guild, inside the guild will have a bunch of workout equipment or maybe a virus mini games that have to do with working out, and where instead of you doing PvP or PvE, you do this working out routine, and that's kind of like for role players who feel more impactful by that sort of gameplay. So there'll be 3 options, at least my plan is for right now. If I don't add it in release, they're still my plans, and I do eventually want to add them. So I'll briefly talk about my classes. Obviously, I want to add more classes. This is just the 5 basic classes in my game, and I'm going to make sure they're better than what they were when people played them during the beta. They're going to feel more smooth. They're going to feel more balanced. My whole game in general is going to feel more smooth and more balanced, and the AI is going to be a lot tougher, well, actually, I'm planning on making randomly generated AI, so the AI is going to be a lot funner. I'm planning, and the AI, yeah. And yeah, I'm hoping that your attacks themselves also feel a lot funner to play as. So I'm hoping to buff up the combat and how fun my game's combat mechanics are right now. So now on to PvE guilds. I've already talked about a PvE guild, which was the Trainers Guild that I plan to implement. But I also want to add a Thieves Guild and a Warriors Guild, stuff like that, kind of inspired by the Elder Scrolls series, where it allowed players to have skills that deal with stealing from other players, pickpocketing, lockpicking, certain houses, maybe even player houses, because I'll talk on to my next system is that I want to add guilds, obviously. And these player guilds, where a bunch of players can group up into one kind of social group. And these player guilds will be able to own land, is what I'm hoping anyways. So don't expect all this, because this is my plans. These are my wild ideas right now, and then they might just blow up my face, and I'd be like, okay, this doesn't work. This idea doesn't really work in this setting. It's impossible. But I have thought of an idea that might work for my setting, and I do want guilds to have their own land mass, that they have power to make their own houses for individual guild members, and to maybe change the aesthetic, maybe add bushes, have the power to do what they will with their own guild space, guild land. And yeah, and besides, and so the ability to make guild houses, guild land, with your guild, gain guild. I don't know how I'll gain guild XP and stuff, but there'll be stuff like that. And also there'll be things for the guilds to capture. Like for example, a zone like this, maybe not this zone particularly, but there'll be some zones like this that have a lot of resources, and you'll be able to capture them with your guild. And if your guild captures them, you'll be able to tax players. I'm going to make it so they can't tax them too much, so they don't like troll. But I'm going to make sure they can maybe make enough money from taxing, so they could buy more guild houses and more stuff for their land that they own. And they can also just make it free taxing and be really nice, and then probably no one wants to attack them, or really minimal. But if you have higher taxes, you can probably expect that people are going to be angry at you, and that they're probably going to take over your zone faster than someone who has 0 taxes or nothing. Okay, and I think I just talked about all my crazy ideas, and I'm still working on this game. I hope to finish it by end of summer, yeah. And thank you everyone for playing my beta. I really appreciate all the feedback you gave me. I really like working on this, and I hope it can be finished and everyone can play it in 4 months' time. So that's just a dream, but things don't always work that way. But it'll be a lot better, hopefully, in 4 months. So thank you all for watching, and have a beautiful day, and peace.